edition of Coffee with Coker. As always, it's a privilege to have you join us. Immediately following today's presentation, we will have a question and answer period, so please feel free to submit your questions throughout the presentation in the area provided in the GoToMeeting dashboard. The participant phone line will be muted for today's presentation, and the materials will be emailed to you after the presentation. As you exit the webinar, a brief survey will pop up, and we would greatly appreciate your feedback on this presentation as well as suggestions for future topics. Marissa Maldonado, Senior Manager and Information Systems Security Officer at Coker Group, will be leading our presentation today. Please join me in welcoming Marissa.
Hi, how's everyone doing? I hope everyone has their coffee. Mine is decaffeinated right now. Everyone can hear me okay? I will say yes, you can. Okay, great. So thank you so much for coming today. I greatly appreciate it. And I'm going to get right in over here. We're going to do a little bit of diving in so we can get a greater understanding about cybersecurity and deciphering what it is. And then also from there, kind of going into the cybersecurity assessments. This has kind of been the hot topic at the end of the year. We're now going into requirements for getting it done. So I want us to come out of this webinar feeling a little bit more empowered while we go and we shop around or go back to our IT group to get these projects done. So we'll go ahead and dive in over here. Let's start with the numbers. I am a statistics nerd, so this is my favorite part. So 169 million personal records exposed in 2015. So of course we don't have our 2016 numbers, but this is kind of what we have as our metrics from the last year. So as everyone probably will be familiar, the average global cost per record containing confidential and sensitive data is about $154 in the dark web. For healthcare records, we jumped to $363. And then so in the past 3 years, we have seen a consistent jump of 30% increase of security incidences. So this, unfortunately, is not going away. And the most startling bit of information is the median number of days security breaches remain undetected within the network, and that is over 200 days. Not to get political or anything, but I like to kind of bring this back to current events, such as going back to the DNC hack that happened when they came in and actually investigated the situation. They came to find out that the actual code or hackers that were in their system had actually been there since July of the year before. So they were actually in there for over a year before they started going in and doing what they wanted to do in there. So why is this happening? I like to, a lot of people come to me with shock and awe of why is this happening, what's going on. Keep in mind that this is just another outfit for something that's been going on, unfortunately, since the dawn of age. We had pirates back then, and then we had mafia and organized crime, and now we have hackers and all this fun stuff. So let's go into why that evolution has happened. Global annual estimated cost is about $445 billion. Put it in perspective, almost 1% of global income. And that's just cost. We don't even really know how to evaluate the revenue. A lot of these transactions go on in what I like to call the dark web. This is where currency is exchanged in things such as Bitcoin, which is basically anonymous international currency. And when I say anonymous, so if I'm on my computer right now and I'm typing, I have an IP address that is associated with the location that I'm in when I'm on Chrome, Google, Firefox, all of that stuff. This dark web actually allows you to go into the internet anonymously, and that's how you kind of go back and forth and exchange currency. So who are our cyber criminals? So we have one, organized cyber criminals. And these are the people for profit, such as I'm sure everyone is familiar with ransomware hacks. We have governments and states. That one's a little bit more of a scary one, so it's state-sponsored hacks against citizens or other countries. And my favorite, hacktivism. It's politically or socially motivated hack by citizens. So I'm sure everyone is familiar with the organization called Anonymous. So they have made a lot of made it to the news quite often, kind of meddling with different types of protests and all of that. So those are kind of our three pillars. So as people within the healthcare industry, what we're really looking at is organized cyber criminals. And we're also going to get into one of them being for profit and one of them being for destruction. So we can kind of differentiate between the two. And kind of one of the reasons that I'm doing that, and now we're going to kind of go into cyber crimes, is because the biggest key for us to really understand the concept of what cybercrime is and why cybercrime is happening will allow us to be able to, one, talk to our practitioners and tell them why these things are important, for such as password resets and all of that fun type of stuff that people kind of see as a nuisance. And two, being able to sit down with our staff and be able to train them about the cybersecurity culture. And so I'm going to go through a list of all the different ways cyber criminals can get into our computers. And I want us to see it as a domino effect. So it might not be, I'm in your computer and this is what I wanted to do. It might be, I go into your computer and that triggers A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So that's why we're going to kind of go through this. So first is malware. So malware, it's code with malicious intent to steal data or destroy computers. So it's email attachments, software downloads, operating system vulnerabilities. Ways to protect yourself: don't click on links or download attachments. Be behind up-to-date firewalls and security patches. So, you know, when we have spam filtration systems, that type of stuff will help detect these type of things. But everything is a cat and mouse game within the world of cybercrime. So imagine back in the early 90s, even into the 80s, it was just, the internet was just a big empty warehouse. And then within that warehouse, we had a couple of little teenagers doing some fun hacking, and they do some code and they attack a system, or they put some malware. So once the malware gets detected, then we have everyone kind of go scrambling and creating a protection, a wall, some sort of security mechanism. So then we have a wall there, that they create a new code, and then we have a wall there. So it's been just this continuous cat and mouse game where we have just all these different security mechanisms. So that's what I talk about by security patches on your computers. Those really annoying downloads that you have to do and restart your computer. That's what that's doing. It's an upgrade to your system to protect you from some sort of new malware. Phishing. So this is a little bit more simple. It's a request for data from a trusted third party. So there's an email that you get where it's, this is from Wells Fargo. Would you please enter in your information and give us your social security number and all of this stuff. Ways to protect yourself. If you get any type of email or even a phone call from a trusted party asking for information and directing you to open an attachment or click a link, do a little bit of due diligence. Be suspicious, unfortunately, and go actually online and type in wellsfargo.com and go to Wells Fargo and call your vendor specifically and then tell them, I have a request for information. I want to verify if this is legitimate. Nowadays, they have whole departments dedicated to identifying these type of phishing attacks. You see it a lot with Microsoft now. Actually, my parents were attacked with that one time, and Microsoft called them saying, Marissa, so they even knew the child's name, and they knew that I was in IT, and they said, Marissa called, you have an infection on your computer, remote us into your computer. And she allowed that to happen. So naturally, we put a lot of blocks on her computer so she doesn't get attacked. So password attacks. A password, it's like a toothbrush. Choose a good one. Don't share it with anyone, and change it occasionally. You know, I like to always say that those simple emails where it's like your company name and then the year that you're working there is not a good password. And that's one of the biggest things that you see from going back into like security assessments for environments is, what are your password rules? How often do you change them? How often do you have to enter them in? Because a lot of our points of entry into systems is through hacking one individual. It's not the whole network as a whole. It's not this, you know, like you see it in movies where all these people are typing furiously and they're wearing hoodies. It's one email, it's one password, it's one point of entry into the system, and it could be as simple as a simple password that was easy to hack. So, does someone already have my account information? If you do anything for a takeaway from today, you should go to this website, haveibeenpwned, PWNED.com. So what this website is, it is an open database of all the information that's being exchanged back and forth on the dark web. Remember we talked about that anonymous place where you go in and sell things illegally, maybe not, but it's anonymous more or less. The information that gets taken from hacks or security breaches actually gets resold on the dark web. And then you kind of think, well, why are they reselling it? What are they doing with it? It could be something as simple as an unethical marketing company wanting to get the information, wanting to know the people that live in the city of Atlanta, and I want confirmed, verified email addresses and their mailing addresses and their date of birth and their age. So it kind of just keeps going down and down the list. So Have I Been Pwned will actually show you if your name is on one of these databases that are kind of getting passed back and forth. I know that I have searched for myself in there, and I was in there for the LinkedIn hack that happened quite a few years ago. And I was in there for, I'm ashamed to admit it, it'll show you my age. My MySpace account was hacked as well. The database was hacked, so those 2 points of entry, that my information is getting exchanged. So that's how you get those weird spam emails that, you know, why am I getting all of this spam email? It's because it's on that database and it's being sold. So just write down haveibeenpwned.com and go there. All right, denial of service attacks. So denial of service attacks is actually a really interesting concept that has been going on since the beginning of our cybersecurity world that we live in. It's now becoming a little bit more relevant, and I'll circle back around and talk about that more at the end about some recent denial of service attacks. So, and this one is where I kind of really go into the fact that there's a domino effect. All right, so I am on my computer and I get this really cool app that I want to download, and it's a free Candy Crush game, and I want to play it when, you know, during my lunch break, of course not during office hours. So if I don't have any blocking mechanisms in place from IT, I download it. And it says it's free, and I'm super excited about it, but actually within that system there's a little tiny thing on the back of it, actually a code in there, some malware. Okay, it doesn't do anything, so I don't really notice, I'm not alarmed, I go about my business. And then a little bit later down, I actually realize that my system is running really slow. So why is my system running really slow? I don't know. Come to find out, I might actually have malware that is performing denial of service attacks. So what is that? Basically, as you can see in my little illustration right there, I create computer zombies as a hacker. So I get a bunch of malware installed on all these computers, and then at some point I actually press execute, and my system tells all of these computers to send out bots, so web bots. So what is this? So basically the best analogy that I can say is imagine there is someone at a house and you want to block all traffic going to them so no one can get to the house. Maybe they're having a party and you didn't get invited, so now you're angry. So you call a pizza restaurant and you have them deliver pizza to the house. But you take it an even step further and you have 200 pizza restaurants and you tell them to deliver to that one house at the exact same moment. So what do you think happens? You have a traffic jam. So the other legitimate people that are actually trying to physically go to the house no longer can get there because of this massive traffic jam. Same concept for denial of service attacks. So it is really relevant with, let's say, e-commerce sites. If we do some type of DDoS attack, their e-commerce site goes down. And imagine the financial repercussion if your store is closed for X amount of hours or X amount of days. Same thing as a business. So if we have our website that is forward-facing to patients where they can go in and book appointments, or they just need your address and they go to your website and they can't get to it because of a denial of service attack on your website. Doesn't look good for you guys, and it potentially you lose patients, or if there's an emergency and they don't know how to get your contact information. So denial of service attacks is becoming more and more relevant, and a lot of security experts, it's kind of across the board. This is where things are going to really get a lot stickier in the next coming years as, you know, denial of service attacks get a little bit more sophisticated. So just keep that in the back of your pocket, because at the end of this webinar, I'm actually going to come back to this and talk about the most recent denial of service attack and what type of implications that has for us as, you know, in the medical world. So, man in the middle. So this is always the one that people kind of are shocked and awe about, and this is one that I really hammer down on, especially for end users and people that walk around with laptops and work remotely. So it impersonates a website and collects all the information you have or you enter within that database. And how do they do that? So how many people are guilty of working at Starbucks on their open wireless? When you go on there, how many people, when they go in, they just click, 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 and they say automatically connect. So the next time you go in, it automatically pops up and everything is great. So within wireless networks, the way that I can jump onto your computer is all I have to do is create a wireless ID, which is just something you type into your wireless access point with the same name as that other wireless. It's really not too complicated. And if there's no password, you will automatically connect to my wireless. So one of the stories that I like to tell is when I was at a concert, a big, you know, outdoor concert, and I had my phone and my wireless was on. So when you have your wireless on, it's just constantly pinging and looking for wireless. And if it recognizes one that says that's triggered to connect automatically and it doesn't have a password, boom, you jump right on. And I look down at my phone, and sure enough, it says I'm connected to Starbucks. There's no Starbucks around, so I turn off and then I changed all of my security settings on my phone. So basically what it was probably some kid with a backpack on that had a system in their backpack, and it's very simple. You know, you just turn on your phone to do a wireless projection. So you get onto the actual wireless and use it, or the cell service. And then I have probably a little wireless access point in there. And I might have even a little computer. Computers can be this small, that actually has some sort of server mechanisms on there, gathering information. So then I'm on your phone, and anything you do on there I can track and look at. So man in the middle, it's really important, and this kind of comes back to our culture of cybersecurity, and, you know, being able to make sure that our security audits at the end of the year look fantastic. Ways to protect ourselves is using VPN connection. When you have a VPN connection, that man in the middle, literally it's just like a black wall, and they can't follow you into that VPN connection to that system that you're in. That's why you see a lot of the times where you can't do anything, you can't save anything on your local laptop, everything has to go within that VPN connection, and that's why. because it protects our systems from the man-in-the-middle attack. So these are these are classics. These are our oldies over here. So drive-by downloads, rogue software, and malvertising. What these are and these are more relevant to websites. A lot of people neglect the fact that websites are also a great point of entry for malware, because it could be as simple as if you have like a comments page on your computer, on your website, they can actually go into the comments page and put malware on it and click send, and if you don't have the right security mechanisms on your website, it will actually execute a malware. So anytime someone comes onto that website, it's just kind of like I like to do the analogy of it's like a flea that's just sitting there waiting, and then as soon as someone comes up, they jump on them. Same concept. That's why sometimes if you're working in your actual network, you might get either A, they just block all the websites, which is, you know, the ideal situation, or B, they have pretty strict security standards. So then you'll get to that website and it'll have this big warning page. It's like, warning, there's something wrong with this website. Don't go here. Or it'll just completely flat block it. So there's a lot of security mechanisms that are in place that are pretty automated nowadays to help protect you from these situations. So if you see that warning, don't ignore it. Don't keep clicking through to try to get to that website. Don't try to work around it. Trust that that's legitimate, and maybe let those people know that that security mechanism, that security warning is actually coming through to you. So, targeted attacks. I hope I haven't scared you guys too much yet. Malicious intent specifically targeted at you. Ways to protect yourself. Don't be one that wants to be targeted, I guess. So follow me with this analogy. I am a home security person, and I am coming to help secure your home. So we start with the basics. I tell you, well, you need a door, and you need windows. So, okay, we're going to put the windows in the door and the roof, so now we have an enclosed house. And now I say, well, let's add the lock. Let's add the deadbolt to your door. And, okay, we're going to do the deadbolt, and then so we take it to the next level. So let's put in security. So let's put in some motion detectors, some detectors if any doors open, anything, and then I get it beeps. Okay, so we do that. And now we're going to do something else, and we're going to actually have it being monitored. So you see how it's a parallel analogy, right? So now we're talking about I had passwords on my computer. I now add a firewall to my network. I now add a, now I'm monitoring it. So now I'm actually using IT to actively monitor my network. Now we're going to do something else. We're actually going to test it. We're going to start doing penetration testing. Right? Follow me with this analogy. So penetration testing of our environment, of our home. Now I'm going to get really, really fancy, and I'm going to put a moat around my house, and I'm actually going to put some crocodiles in there, and maybe some piranhas, and there's a big bridge, and there's a moat that we have to go through, and you have to do the secret handshake to get across. So now I'm like super, super, super protected, just castle, fortress, all of it, every single thing. Also, it's very expensive, right? So as we get to more and more and more security layers into our network, we're spending a lot more money. So I have this one guy that's just sitting on a hill, and he's watching us, patiently watching and testing, just testing, seeing how I can go through. And then he actually notices that there's a person that walks into the house and knows all the security mechanisms and goes right through. So he goes to that person and he says, I would love to come through. I would love to come in. I have some really great slideshows or, you know, spreadsheets, or I'm selling kitchen knives. Can I come to your door? And so they walk through the moat, the bridge comes down, they walk to the door, and they knock on the door. And the person opens the door and lets them right in. So we had a targeted attack, and also known as a socially engineered attack, right? That person engineered a social situation where they can get into the network. into the home. Same idea. It's kind of like the vampire analogy. So if you tell the vampire they can come into your home, then you have a problem. So it's a matter of let's teach every single person that is touching a computer how to know when and when they should not open the door, whether it's to a website, whether it's to an email, whether it's into a remote connection into their system, all of those things. And also, it's a ripple effect. So not only are we talking about my network, but now we're also talking about the network outside of mine, so all the vendors that go into my system. So imagine every single one of those vendors that come into your network. What are they doing to protect themselves from, oops, I dropped my earpiece. What are they doing to protect themselves from that socially engineered attack? Are they doing cybersecurity training over at their location? Do their employees have as much empowered knowledge as your employees do? Because one of the things that you've actually seen is some of these larger security breaches. Just this past year, there was a very large one for the SRS, and this is public knowledge. This was released in the news, and it was quite an interesting story. The actual point of entry into their databases of SRS was through a vendor's password. So how did they get that vendor password? They just patiently looked from the outside and found their point of entry till they got to their honeypot, which was patient records. So I know I've kind of sat on this slideshow for this actual specific slide for a second, but I want us to really kind of get a grasp of the ripple effect of everything that kind of comes from these cybersecurity attacks. So we're going to end this, and not quickly, but we still have a couple of minutes over here. We're going to talk about these most recent cyber attacks. So we are now cybersecurity experts. We're going to talk about locky files and the DDoS attack that I was just talking about, that denial of service attack. Okay, so how many people know about ransomware? I'm sure everyone that is on this webinar is nodding their head saying, yes, I know about the ransomware. I heard the horror story. We've been seeing this a lot with a lot of clients coming to us after the ransomware attack happened. So let's talk about it. Let's understand what it is and why it's happening. Ransomware attacks were first sent to nearly 500,000 victims on February 16, 2016. I always love the fact that there's such a specific date that we can really trace this back to when this happened. It just shows you how much how much knowledge and information we have on the World Wide Web. So it came in the form of a Word document with a malicious macro in it. So again, we're going back to, there was an email that went out, it had an attachment, maybe it got stopped in our Barracuda spam filtration or whatever type of email filtration system that we have, but it said something and I was like, well, this looks very irrelevant, so I click whitelist or deliver, and then I open the attachment. And then it's some Word document, and I'm sure you guys have seen these where it says, this Word document has a macro. Are you sure you're opening this from a trusted source? Of course it's a trusted source. Open, boom, we have the infection. So targets were sent the infected document via an email masked as an invoice requiring payment. The original locky file, the original ransomware would actually change your wallpaper on your computer with instructions on what to do next. Locky files are infecting 1 to 5 computers every second. So let's just think about that. Even while we've been sitting here on this webinar, empowering ourselves with knowledge about how things happen within the cybersecurity world, we have companies that unfortunately have felt complete devastation that their systems are completely locked down. So I'm just going to show you kind of a little bit of what these actually look like. They look fairly harmless, unless you know that usually if you get a zip file, that's always a red warning flag. So here's an email from Ruben Michael, a weekly report. and it's going to a distribution list called sales, and it says, hi sales, please find attached the weekly report. Kind regards, Ruben Michael, Echo Global Logistics Incorporated. Well, that sounds legitimate. I'm going to open that up, and all of these security mechanisms that are in place and saying, don't open this, don't open this, don't open this. I keep clicking. So then I get this executable file, and I'm multitasking right now. I'm doing all sorts of different things, and so I click, and I say, I'm going to open this. See, it says JavaScript file. That's a pretty big warning sign. Because JavaScript is an executable file that can do things on your computer. So then we get the encrypted files. So basically what happens, this is a little hard to see, so I apologize for the small type. But these files at the very bottom over here, I think you can see my cursor. Right over here, these are called, you see how it says Locky file? Yeah, you have a long string. Those are called encrypted files. So the only way to open those files back up is with an encrypted key. I think this is kind of cool, and I say that from kind of a little bit of a nerdy perspective because I find it fascinating because it's almost like a human virus. You know, it's the same concept of how these things work and how they infect. We originally created encryption to protect ourselves. Is that starting to sound familiar? Antibiotics, all that stuff. Terminator movie, creating a weapon to protect ourselves, and then it comes back against us to cause destruction. Encryption was meant to help us deliver information across the World Wide Web protected. So basically it would be in a key, and I would be traveling on the World Wide Web, and no one could come and see what is in this piece of information traveling unless I have an encryption key. And I send that encryption key to someone all the way in New York, and they are the only ones that have it, and once they click the link and they type in their password, it will unencrypt the file to show us what it is, usually in the form of an email. Now we're hearing it a lot with encrypted hard drives. That's the big thing that's been happening lately. In the past year, we have moved all laptops to encryption technology, which has been really great. With the improvement of technology, we've been able to do that. So, instructions on how to pay the ransom. So I'm going to go back right here. It's really hard to see, so I'm sorry. But so if you see right here, it says help instructions.html. When you click that, it actually gives you instructions. So we've seen a couple of these ransomwares come into play when people actually come to us, SOS, we need help, what do we do? And I just absolutely love seeing this one, and it's weird that I say that I love seeing it, but in here, it actually has Wikipedia links to educate you on what advanced encryption standards are, what's RSA, crypto systems, and then it tells you, and here's the best part, it will actually tell you how to get the Tor browser. So the Tor browser is one of the, it's like Firefox, Chrome, Explorer, except it's a web browser for the dark web. So you have to download it, then you have to pay with Bitcoin, this whole system. And it's so elegantly automated, and they make it so easy for you to pay the ransom. So ransomware is basically their way of making money. It's a malicious way of making money. So just to kind of stay on this for a little bit longer, one of the things that's really changed in healthcare is if you have a ransomware attack, you are now liable to report it. It's kind of gone back and forth within the legal system, but the main thing that has come out of it is you don't really know what happened to that data. You can't really prove that it wasn't compromised. And then the other argument is, well, it's encrypted. Nothing has happened to it. It's just locked, and then you have to pay the encryption, or you restore from a backup and stop that point of entry of that encryption, and that's how you were able to get out of it. If you don't have good backup, then at some point you're going to have to pay that ransom. So that's kind of been a really hot topic because we've actually started seeing, and you can look this up on the news nowadays, because there are actual medical practices that have been hit with ransomware. And within that, there's protocols after that happens of what you do once that ransomware happens, of how you report it, what you're liable for. You have to do credit monitoring for all of your patients. That's why we've now started talking about cybersecurity insurance nowadays, so that we can help, so that the insurance can help you with those costs. And we're kind of in that wild west, if you will, right now. So we've actually had pretty unfortunate stories about practices that didn't have the insurance ready, and they got attacked with ransomware. And then there's also the question of, what do we do if there's a ransom attack? It's the same thing. What is my emergency protocol? Do we pay the ransom? Do we not pay the ransom? A lot of people are even saying nowadays it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So one of the best ways to protect yourself from ransomware is A, what are we doing for our email filtration system? Is it up to date? Is it super current? Is it updating itself with all the new variations of ransomware? How does it sneak into different file types to execute on your system? And B, are we educating our staff on what this is and why we need to be careful of how we open up emails and how we interact with our computer? Because this ransomware is all socially engineered. All of the attacks happen from someone doing something to allow that entry point. All right, so I hope you guys aren't too scared yet. We're almost through this. The Dyn DDoS attack. I don't know if anyone is familiar with this. So this happened 7 a.m. October 21st, 2016. So this was pretty recent. There were 3 waves of targeted attacks on Dyn. That's a company. It's an internet infrastructure company based in New Hampshire. So what is an internet infrastructure company? It's basically like a switchboard. So back in the good old days where we dial our phone and we'd actually get an operator, and then they would see what number we were dialing and they move something, and then you go through and actually make the phone call. Same concept, except it's internet. So for instance, when I type in www.google.com, once it goes out to give me that website, it's not actually looking for google.com. It's actually looking for 8.8.8, but it's like 192.222, some sort of number. And an internet infrastructure company is who routes that request and allows that system to happen. So that's a domain name system, a DNS service company. It's address book for an internet. DDoS attacks, like I said, are not uncommon. They've been happening since the beginning of our internet world. However, this one exposed vulnerabilities to the internet traffic stability and Internet of Things. So what happened with this attack, it seemed like websites were going down. I know they said like some financial websites, CNN, some other major news source websites were going down. It wasn't that they were going down, it was that Dyn was being attacked, and so there was no way for them to move traffic to where they needed to go. So they used a source code called Mirai. So what is Mirai? Mirai is an Internet of Things botnet deployed in August 2016. It infects Internet-enabled digital video recorders, DVRs, surveillance cameras, and other Internet-enabled embedded devices. Mirai is considered a DDoS for hire service, which allows attackers to launch an attack on a target in exchange for generally Bitcoin payments. So Mirai is actually a source code that, as a hacker, I can go on the dark web and order it. Crazy. You can actually order this actual malware and have it deployed on systems and then do with it what you want. So they used this source code and then they did a very methodical targeted attack on Dyn. So it's designed to scan for other vulnerable devices once it has infected an Internet of Things device within a network. So if you can see over here, see this map where all that red is, these are the areas that were affected from this attack. I believe in this there was actually 3 waves of attack, so they were able to stabilize it within the day, but what the lessons from this design DDoS attack was, the attacks are getting larger. So before, attacks were made up of computers. This attack exposed the Internet of Things and cameras and videos and all that. That's a lot heavier traffic. So you can be a lot more effective with how you deliver your pizza. Remember our analogy about delivering 200 pizzas to that one house in the exact same minute. So the largest data transfer rate seen in an attack, so 1.2 terabytes, that's twice as powerful as any similar attack recorded in history. It exposed the serious cyber insecurity of Internet of Things devices, and it was a non-state group performed attack. So a non-state group performed the attack, which means it was one of the most powerful private attacks that we've seen in our time. So it was definitely something that we need to keep track of. So understanding your environment. Last but not least, let's talk about the cybersecurity culture, and let's talk about what type of questions do we take away from this and go ask our IT team. Sit down, have your meeting. We're at the end of the year right now. I know a lot of people are required to do these security risk assessments. So hopefully at this point, you might have already done those maybe. So what are our top 3 biggest vulnerabilities? Tell them to me. Your IT team should probably be able to spit those out to you, and they probably haven't done them because we probably had some point of conflict between what's the right word, the effectiveness of how quickly we can provide service to our patients and security. So we have like this sliding scale. So right over here is there are no security mechanisms whatsoever. So remember, we have no windows, we have no doors, it's just a wide open field and you can come and go as you please. Obviously, we don't do that. Then you have over here where basically there is no internet. So that's like super, super secure vault. That's the vault, the moat, the alligators, the piranhas, there's not even a bridge anymore, so you can't even get to us. Everything is just locked down. It's a steel cage. And then we have right here in the middle. So everyone kind of is, where do we land on this? Obviously, being on the super, super secure side is not practical. It would have us all come to a screeching halt, and there would be lots of angry practitioners throwing computers at us, being like, why can't I service my patients? Because there's so many security mechanisms in place. So where do we go right here? So your IT will probably be able to tell you it's this, this, and this is what I wish we would do, but I can't, because then the doctors are going to be furious because now we've decreased their ability of seeing X amount of patients a day. Do we have an effective information security awareness program? Does this address the internal threat? The internal threat is what we were talking about. That's socially engineered threat. In the event of a data breach, what is our response plan? So going back to what I was talking about with ransomware, okay, we get ransomware. What do we do? Here's our chart, X, Y, Z, A through Z, this is what we do. Are we conducting comprehensive and regular information security risk assessments? And we'll go into what does that exactly mean. Are we adequately insured? What is our threshold for cost, productivity, and cybersecurity? And that goes into, once again, talking about that sliding scale. Where are we at? Because we have to have productivity. We have a budget, but we have to address the cybersecurity concerns. So where do we fall on that line? So security assessment. So the purpose is identifying your network security posture. So sit up straight and tall, and what is our posture? So the types of assessments, we have vulnerability scan, penetration test, also known as pen test, red, blue, purple team test. What that means is red is the team that's attacking, and blue is the team that's protecting, and then purple is the team that, what are they doing, how are we learning from them, and we kind of go from there. It's almost like a simulation game. Black box, white box, when we are doing these different types of tests, how much knowledge do we have? Are we Do we know the network? Do we know kind of what our admin passwords are? And we're just kind of doing a very broad-based penetration test. Or are we going in like a targeted attack and knowing nothing about the network and doing everything that we can to get in? Or even the other socially engineered, am I hiring an actual security person to actually book an appointment, go to your practice, and go and see how they can get information to attack you? So I go into an exam room. Is there a computer in there? Can I plug in a USB stick into that computer? Did you lock the computer when you walked out of the room? Do I have access to your information? Is there a data jack in the exam room while I'm there by myself? Can I plug in a laptop into that data jack and get access into your system? So as you can see, you can spend just a little bit of money and you can get really, really, really complex security assessments for your network. It all depends on the requirements. It all depends on how much you're willing to spend and kind of meet in the middle with all of that. So thank you so much for your time. I hope you guys have learned some stuff from here. But I'm going to actually open this up to questions. So there's a chat box on here, and go ahead and type in there, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have. So, well, first question, if you find your info on the Have I Been Pawned website, is there anything you can do about it? Good question. So, change your passwords. That's basically the most elegant answer that I can give you on that. Change your passwords. There's not really much you can do if it's a really large security breach that you're concerned about. Do a credit freeze on your account and monitor it and see what's going on. I know I'm sure there's some people here today that have gotten their Yahoo email from our security breach that happened yesterday. Well, it was released yesterday where we had 1 billion. That's one of the largest security, I think it's actually the largest security breach. So if you have a Yahoo account, change your passwords, and also on there, that actual security breach has your answers to your questions, your secret questions. So you might have to go through your other accounts that you might share passwords with your Yahoo account and change those security questions. So there's a little bit of investigation that you have to do, but as far as calling an agency and telling them to fix it, no, you have to do your due diligence on that one. So what else? Do we have any more questions over here? Okay, so so going right into the Yahoo. For the Yahoo accounts exposed, what should we do as a practice to protect ourselves? All right. How many people on this webinar, and I know I can't see you guys raise your hands, but how many people fight with their practitioners about using personal email addresses? That's one of the biggest concerns that we have whenever we go into a network is, why are these doctors using AOL.com? Why are they using Yahoo.com for email? Like, use our actual email where we can protect you and we can have our spam filtration system and all of that stuff. So as a practice, I would send notifications out to your employees today to let them know that this happened, that this Yahoo security breach has happened, and to let them know that if they have Yahoo accounts, please change your passwords. And if you even want to get more aggressive about it, you can just go across the board and make everyone change their passwords into your actual system and into their email addresses, whether or not you use email on-premise or you use Business Google or 365. Encourage them to change those passwords. So that's pretty much what you can do about it. They didn't get any financial records for Yahoo, so it was just specifically passwords and security questions. So when doing security assessments, what have you seen as the greatest risk for practices? So I keep answering these questions as right before they come in. Again, the greatest risk for practices, people using personal email addresses. 365 is not expensive, so there's no reason to have anyone in your practice using Gmail, using Yahoo, using AOL. Give them business email addresses and put spam filtration systems on those emails. 2, if you're a small practice, having your actual like IT closet open to the office. If it's in a little closet and the door is open, I could go in there and pop something in there really quick. Those 2 are the biggest exposures. And then the third, which is surprising, is screen filter, privacy security screens on monitors that are exposed to patients walking back and forth that can actually show patient information. Because as someone who is a hacker, I'm not saying that I'm a hacker, but someone who would be in your office that could have potentially malicious threat, I could look in there and see what system you have. Cool, you have SRS. I know that there's an SRS, security breach that I can go in and check out and see if that password works, or see how can I get into your system. So being a little bit more tight about how we are presenting ourselves to the patients and what type of information we're giving them on our actual screen. All right. How do you get practitioners to comply with security protocols? Good question. It depends. You have so many different personalities. It's the same thing with quality of care. How do I make sure a patient follows through with the information that I'm recommending to them? Sometimes you have to do it to the best of your ability. Sometimes you have to tell them, all right, I need you to sign this document saying that you have this information and you know what I'm talking about, so that if there is an issue and we have a security breach, I know who to come to have a conversation about this with. Spending 10 minutes in your board, and when you have your board meetings, and sitting down with them and talking about the importance of this, talking about the Yahoo security breach, going back to them, all right, you guys, this is why you guys need to start using these email addresses from the actual business because of something like this. We had a 1 billion bits of information from Yahoo on the security breach. So let's fix that. So it's part of the game. You have to have a little bit of social intuition on how to get these practitioners to follow these protocols. I know staff, it's a little bit easier because you can say what they can and they can't have access to. But with practitioners, usually they have open access on the web. They can go on their email. They can do what they need to do. So it does get a little tricky. It's a constant battle. Okay, what have been the most effective security awareness programs you have seen? I would say when you have companies that have a, instead of a punitive, like you clicked on something, you did something wrong, more of a, you identified an email that had some sort of, it was a phishing email, and you identified it and you reported it to IT. Congratulations, give them some sort of recognition of being a vigilante of cybersecurity. So I've really seen where you actually get the practice to really be involved in it, and it just being a continual topic of conversation. You don't necessarily have to, push it down their throat hours and hours at an end. And even those online like quizzes that people have to take, sometimes it kind of just falls on deaf ears, or who knows, they might be like, hey, get their kid that's in college to do it for them. But I've really seen when you actually have like a congratulatory culture of cybersecurity that falls, that goes over pretty well. So, okay, what are the key takeaways we should have with a security assessment? good question. The security assessments, they range pretty broadly. You could be spending a couple of $100. You could be spending many thousands of dollars. So, or your IT group, whether it's internal or you have an external IT, they might actually include it at the end of the year for the services you can provide. I think the biggest key takeaway from it is your roadmap. What were the biggest vulnerabilities that you came out of from the year, from 2016, or or from the quarter, depending on how often you do them, and what are our actions moving forward? Because those are security assessments. They might actually have a lot of nerdy technical talk on there that might kind of fall on deaf ears, and that's just as technical, and they talk about it amongst themselves. But I think those are the big key takeaways from it. Usually they'll come with executive reports on them, and then they'll actually show on those executive reports. Passwords are a big issue. Let's do a campaign to fix password issues. Let's do a big campaign to fix physical security of our network. So I think that's the biggest takeaway. What are our policies and procedures? Are they up to date? Because as you can imagine, policies and procedures, they're changing every day because the security world is the ever-evolving industry. Okay, well, I think that's it. So I'm going to hand this back over to Susanna. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you learned some things. And please take my phone number and my email address, and I'm always open for any type of dialogue or any type of questions that you guys might have after this meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Marissa, for that presentation. Like she said, if you have any additional questions or would like some further discussion, please feel free to reach out to her directly. Again, we would greatly appreciate your feedback on this presentation through the survey as you exit the webinar. Again, the slides to this presentation will be emailed to you either later today or tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day.